Before the class, I want to show you the status of your performance so far, okay? And actually, I'm not quite satisfied with whatever we have here. And as you can see, that for the in-class notes, we still have several students who didn't submit on time, but I think it's improving, okay? And the worst thing is about front page story. And you might think that's no big deal, but I think for the reason I'm asking you to submit the front page story is because most of you, I think, you never have the experience to connect to any business, and even though not really the accounting, because as you see from the story, it's all about the business. So that's why I think you should be familiar with some terminology, okay, related to business. And actually, most of the story are very short. It won't take you too long to finish the work. I think the maximum time you should complete within 30 minutes. Okay, so you should write on the story your feedback. Not really think that what you feel. If you can think that, after I read story I feel something like that, that's okay. That's very good. But if you cannot do that, at least you should cross down, underline or then write down some terminology you think you've never been experienced before. Then that's also another function for the front page story. Later on, one chapter, actually, each chapter only has one front page story. So not that many. So 2 or 3 weeks, and you just submit one time. So wherever you haven't done this, I'm not happy about that. Okay, especially I put a remind on your line and remind you that the homework will be due on today's noontime. Still, very limited students have done this. Of course, this one, because the TA hasn't really recorded, so that's why. But I checked this morning. I think there are only about no more than 10 students have submitted the front page story. Okay, that's not good. Okay, so please, if you can do, we still have 2 more hours to finish. If you want to submit, that will be also counted part of the whole semester's credit. Okay, and something. The roll call, I think most of you are doing okay. Okay, now. Okay. Just watch out. I have TA, so that's why she will follow all your in-class performance or whatever the record. Okay, update every week. Okay, so I will check on your overall. Not only we have a good performance on your exam or something, but I think the attitude is something I really care about. Okay, and for this afternoon's quiz, and there are several questions. I told you only have the true and false questions, which I have already uploaded the question for chapter 1. Very similar or about the same, or I will change some words. And the second one is some very easy definition for some terminology. It's also multiple choice, okay? And also the third one, the major part, is multiple choice. And there are several questions I'm asking you about the effect on the accounting equation. For example, I purchased a computer equipment with $50,000. Then what will be the effect? So if you know you have a computer equipment, okay, and then you have cash for your asset area. So if you are using $50,000 to purchase a computer equipment with cash, which means you will reduce your cash at the same time. So the effect for the accounting equation is you don't have any thing change on your asset. Of course, for liability, nothing happened. For equity, nothing happened. Okay, always still keep the balance. So something similar like this question, I believe there are like 5, even more questions. So you have to be very familiar with the accounting equation, the change. Okay, if you can do that good, I think most of the other is the concept for chapter 1. Okay, hope everybody had a good score this afternoon. So we're moving to chapter 2, and as you know that for what the midterm is coming soon, it should be the second week of the November. But however, we'll just moving to chapter 2, so don't worry, we probably will defer our midterm a week after. So on the regular midterm week, then we still have to continue our lecture. Then a week after, okay, then we have our midterm exam. Okay, let's move into chapter 2. Chapter 2 actually will be faster than chapter 1. The reason why, because we have done lots of jobs. Even though why you're so slow, Professor Melody, because we spend a lot of time actually tangle with chapter 2 together. Okay, so moving to chapter 2 should be, if you follow me well on chapter 1, then I think chapter 2 will be fast. Okay, so chapter 2 is about how are you going to analyze the transaction and how are you going to record all the transactions. Okay, why you need to analyze? Sometimes if it's a transaction, some must item is, it does have to involve two parties, okay? And also the things, it has to come up with the dollar money, okay? So if don't have these two items, we cannot call them transactions. So before you in the start, okay, you have to know, analyze whether some transaction has to be recorded or not. Okay, so it is very easy. So after, I think, the first 4 or first 5 chapters, normally you can call yourself, if you are doing good in accounting, then you can call yourself, oh, I'm a bookkeeper. But you won't say I'm an accountant. Accountant, 会计人员, because accountant not only cover the job she's or he's doing, not just limited on financial accounting. When you say you are accountant, you should be more familiar, even more like the tax area, okay? But if you say I can do daily records, then you are just a bookkeeper. So after first 4, first 5 chapters, then you can call yourself a bookkeeper. Okay. So what bookkeeper is doing actually is doing she's doing just daily the same work. Just like a cycle. Okay. It's an accounting process. First thing you need to identify that the business transaction or the events they are, it's necessary to record or not. If not, okay. For example, I just signed a contract with someone else. Then we are going to have a full year contract to purchase the items or the goods or the products from this party. In that case, you just have an agreement between two sides, but actually nothing happened yet. But in that case, you can still write on your book, but it's only a memorandum. MOA, memo, okay? So it's not counted as a transaction, okay? So you need to identify first, then analyze, then record, okay? Then you do the daily work. Every day, probably in the beginning, only 20 transactions happen, but later on after half year, then will be 20 transactions happen. Then after a couple years, you have hundreds of transactions happens. Okay, you have so many records. You cannot just leave them on your book. you have to what? Summarize them. For example, I have 20 transactions today. Then most or 80% of the transactions are done with cash. I receive some cash, I pay out some cash. In that case, if you just read the record, you don't know if you are the manager, just like the one of you someday, okay? You are the main person. You care what's the result of the cash, okay? We'll ask Lane, but what's the cash for the balance for today? Oh, have to check the book. Then you use the calculator, add something, minus something, add up something. You won't do that. Too slow, okay? Because everyday transaction, after you put on your record, on your journal book, 日记簿, okay? Then so the computer supposedly will post the cash every day, add up something, minus something. They will give you the final balance. So the summary means you only need to check the cash account, see the balance of the day. Then you can respond to your director or whoever the manager say, oh, we still have the cash balance of $31,000. Okay, you can just check the summary of the account right away. So the last thing is, you're not just doing the recording, the work. You have to, well, even though if you do that manually, of course you should not summarize for each account. But now it's a computer world, okay? So the system will help you to summarize for each account right away, okay? Then, after you have so many accounts, okay, based or under the assets, and so many accounts under the liability, and several accounts under the equity, then the next step, you should make the financial statements. Okay, then the next work should be, if you are the business person, you should, based on the financial statement, analyze what happened, what's the number meaning for the company. Okay, all right. For example, sometimes people like to see, oh, this company comparing to other similar company in the same industry, this company has very, very much cash. Then this is good. But actually, from the other side, you will think, actually the CFO, Chief Financial Officer, okay, he or she is just too conservative. Because why you need that much cash? You should use the cash to invest, to do some investment or make some good usage for the cash. Okay， 有的时候你会觉得这家公司现金很多，非常棒。但是从某些你会分析报表的角度来说，你会觉得说他干嘛把这么多现金拿在手上？他应该做更好利用，尤其是 especially for the past year, the stock market is so hot. People are just making a joke. If you hit on the target, 投标 whatever you throw, you hit a point. You can make money because last year, even though it's COVID-19, for some reason in Taiwan, our stock market was so hot. I think at least 70% people make money from the last year. Okay, 大部分去年人都可以赚钱从股票市场里面，因为不知道为什么。I think that's because COVID-19 problem for like US and some other problems, they have even worse situation comparing to Taiwan for the COVID-19. So the hot money just flow to Taiwan. So that's why make Taiwan stock market so hot. When the stock market was so hot, then it's so easy to make money, no matter what kind of investment. If that's the case, why you are holding so much money in your hand? Okay, 你为什么在这么多钱在你手上 Of course, you need to do something. Okay, so that's why you have to analyze your financial statements, then interpret, explain to whoever needed. Okay, so this is the cycle, the process from the very beginning, then the final product of the accounting job is financial statement. 我们最后的一个产品就是财务报表。Then, whoever you are good in business, then you can tell you know the story, you know the real things from the financial statement. OK， 所以这就是我们会计人在做的事情。OK。So the whole process very easy. You analyze something. Here, please try to underline on your book, and especially the Chinese definition. Okay, 记录一下，因为 starting from chapter 2, we have so many keywords that you have to know both Chinese and English. Okay, the first thing you should analyze the source document. What is source document? Like the invoice. Later I will explain. 像什么发票啊 receipt 啊 something like that. Contract. We have so many source documents. So if later on you become a professional accountant, then you probably can find a job for being an auditor. 之后你们做会计专业人员，你可能会做到审计人员查账。Then you need lots of the evidence. 你需要很多的证据。Then source documents are part of your evidence， 就是很重要的一个证据去查核这家公司。So 那个叫做 source document. So once you identify, then it's a valid source document. Why I say valid? 有效的凭证。Because for example, you have a student club. 你们都有系学会嘛，对不对？ Then lots of students, because they never care about the financial report. 他们并不在意学会的报表，所以每一次 every time they buy something, they don't give any receipt, or just write something on the blank paper. Just write it. No stamp, no ID number from the buyer, the seller. Then 你知道later on when we try to review all the source documents from student clubs, okay, because someone makes really bad things from actually to take the money away from your student union, okay, club. So later on I require, at least for my department, student club, whatever you purchase, even the store, they don't need to provide the formal invoice. 即便是不用提供发票 I will require them, the receipt has to come up with the two stamps, 两个章 One is from the store stamp, one is the owner stamp. Okay? Even though they don't have the tax ID number. 有些小店他们是不给不会有统一发票编码，但是我们会计系会要求所有的收据都至少有大小章，就是店章和业主章，还有相关东西。Then this is a valid receipt. If not, then we won't take it. Then the cash will not be counted. Okay? So source document is very important evidence. Another very, very good example. Couple years ago, and I went to a very famous department store in Taichung. Okay? And I was being responsible to audit the annual report. 我们做查账. And actually, we cannot find the support, the evidence, the receipt, okay, the source document for that $2 million legal expenses. 它的叫做交际费 ，okay, 200万 We could not, they just cannot support any kinds of evidence for us. Even though we spent almost half day trying to find out the receipt for those $2 million legal expense. Okay? So later on, we cross out the whole $2 million expenses for that month. 我们就必须把它那整笔的资料划掉，因为 no support. So source document looks like it's just a piece of paper, but they really mean something. Okay, so it's been broken. Later on, if it's a valid receipt or source document, then you put on the book. We call that journal. Journal, just like a diary, 你的每天做日记。但是 for accounting, we also call them journal. Okay? Then you put a journal you just like, doing the record, for example, 10, 20, 10, 15, you have some debit, you have some credit, and you have, you do that every day, but that's not the real thing you want. I just mentioned what is a post. For example, I have cash here for 5,000, then we have a debit credit cash for 1,000. So the posting means every day you have each individual account. So for example, October 12th, you have debit cash, so you put them here. On October 15th, you have credit here. The action, we call that post. You have to post the number of each account from your journal to each individual account. Then later on, you will see the balance. So that action, we call that posting. Posting. You post, what does post mean? You post from your journal book. So this is your journal book. This is your individual account. So post means from the journal book information to individual account information. We call this account and actually another ledger. Ledger means depends on your company size. If you are a really big company, then you might have very complicated, pretty many the ledger accounts. Okay, if you are just a small company, probably the company only has 20 ledger accounts. Okay, so that's the thing. Then you have, for example, you have cash, you have accounts receivable. For example, you have $1 million, and you also have notes receivable. So you have several ledger accounts balance. Once you get the information here ready, then you got the last step. You can use this individual balance for each account and make the financial statements. Make the financial statement. So this works just like a cycle, do it again. Okay. So actually, as long as I have to remind you, the last row student, 最后一排同学你们不可以讲话哦，不是说那个，因为我们在前2周我们有录就是 video 录音，那结果呢，他们用的是非常advanced 那个收音，所以后来的 something really not good 就是那个收音进去都是后面一排同学的杂音，所以那也去不掉音。OK， 所以不好意思，坐在最后一排的尤其不能讲话，怕音会跳进去。你知道我们以前不是看人家拍电影，拿个很大的一个那个东西，那一点点的那个 wing 啊，什么声音它都可以收得进去。Yes, thank you. Okay, so we are preparing the financial statement, but here we are saying the trial balance. What's the difference between trial balance? Trial balance we use the word TB. TB. So if you have learned the accounting, you know, you just say TB. I need a TB. Whoa, TB is not that you have the shot 那个什么叫什么卡介苗叫 TB. Okay, then here the TB means trial balance. Trial balance. Okay, then trial balance. What is trial balance? Actually, before you are making formal financial statement, you need to try something, see the correctness of the financial statement. So we call that TB. Later on, I think on chapter 3 or 4, we will move to TB. So this is the whole process, okay, for the whole accounting work. So then, very easily, we just really go through. Relying on source document, the transaction and event are analyzed using the accounting equation. So it's important you know the equation, how to do the debit and how to do the credit. Then after that, you know the effect on company operation. performance。OK， 注意一下这个字啊 ，When you see operating performance, that means how good and how bad of your business. That definitely implies to income statement. 如果你已经 read through the chapter 1, at the end, there are 4 financial statements. Income statement, change of the equity and the balance sheet. Running out of battery. Okay, balance sheet and the statement of cash flow. Okay, so that's why when you are saying the operating performance 经营成果的时候 that implies to income statement. OK， 所以要知道他们的 relation。如果我说 financial position 的话，一个公司的财务状况 that implies to balance sheet. OK， 这是一个专业的，一听就知道你在讲什么。Once again, if people are asking you what about the operating performance of this company, then you should draw up the income statement. 就把那个损益表拿出来。因为 what is income statement? How much revenue or sales you have, and how much expenses incurred, then what is the net income for that specific period? 那在那段期间的本期损益是正的还是负的？ So that's we call operating performance 财务的表现。But if you're asking the financial position, definitely it means your balance sheet. OK， 因为他要知道我的 status of your assets.The status of your liability and the status of your equity， 你的每一个的状况的情形 ，OK。所以 majorly we will say that financial statement, the basic 2 statement, one is a statement of comprehensive income statement， 好，就是财务综合那个损益表。好，再来 another one is balance sheet. Some people say statement of financial position， 这2个才是最主要的。最主要的2个报表非常重要，因为一个代表了经营成果，一个代表了财务状况。OK， so and the others with the regular daily work we put on you can see that journal book or just books. OK, then we have posting, we have a trial balance, we do the summary, and we do the classify. Classify means 你要把它分到哪一个 assets or liability or equity. Okay. Sometimes people just put on the wrong spot, 放错的地方。Now let's see what about the source document. Okay. There are several things that you can see. The hard copy. 我们讲纸本，你不要说 paper. 我们通常you need to give me the hard copy of your exercise homework. 意思说你要用纸本交给我。我们通常不太会用 paper. Okay. Hard copy. 指的就是原始的那个纸本，或者现在 is more popular using the electronic form， 就是电子的部分 ，OK。那我们还有说发票 sales invoice，this is a very frequent word，invoice 就是你的发票 ，invoice，I will say a little bit different from the receipt。好，发票跟收据不一样 ，invoice has to come up with the tax ID number of the seller， 通常发票是要有统编 ，OK？ 所以如果 if you want to， your parents tell me that whatever you purchase, tell them your tax ID number. OK, I do that. 然後你就很高興就做了。那有一天呢，你不是會兑獎嘛？統一發票。Oh, I got the lotto, I get $1 million. 但是你那個 invoice 的 receipt 上 come up with a tax ID number 就不可以得獎。任何的兑獎是 without tax ID number 才可以。如果你聽你父母話，偏偏你中了100萬的 ，sorry, oops， 你就不可以兑拿那100萬。OK, that's the difference. OK， 因為呢 invoice tax ID number they are using that for company expense, not for the individual. OK， 所以我們的統一發票的獎是 for 個人的中獎，不是 for company 的。It's not for enterprise. OK， so invoice come up with tax ID number, but generally the receipt may or may not come up with the tax ID number. That's a little bit different. OK， then if you're the invoice, normally we have to issue 2 copies, 正联跟负联. So next time, not like that you go to the, well, normally for the merchandise, 买卖业, you go from the 7 or from department store, you just have the 1 copy. 但是如果你去 for business, you have tax 19 number or something, then you have to issue 2 copies. OK, 那即便是我记得OK， 你在那个 7或者以前那种传统的那种长条式 receipt， 那你看 one row， then they give the receipt. That's the original copy， 正本。Then on the other side, actually they have the 任何一边的 copy， 任何的 second copy， 第二个 copy， 那它是 for them tax purpose. OK, so any business they have issued 2 copies. The top one, OK, 正本 that's for the customer. The second one, that's for the seller. They will file the tax to report their sales tax purpose. OK, so 1 to file and这边说有 the 2 copies, 1 to file and 1 to the electronic file tax. So in source document we have several examples like sales tickets, checks, purchase order. Later on when you do, take the financial cost accounting， 那你会看到很多 or accounting information system。这些课程的 course then you have several chance you will see the word purchase order 订购单 ，OK。And the bills from supply bill 就是你的账单 ，OK。那 employee earnings record，OK。Then the bank statement。那我们在这学期或下学期我们会有个银行对账单 ，OK。怎么样 check 你的 cash on the book and the cash from the bank？Then see the normally they are different。通常的现金在你的账簿上跟银行人家寄给你的账单是不一样的，那你 have to reconcile。reconciliate 就是把它们变成一样的那就是我们后面要学的银行 bank statement， 这是一个很重要的东西 ，OK bank statement 就是银行对账单银行对账单 ，OK。Then here example， 我们 just mention like invoice receipt， receipt 应该都知道的 P 不发音的receipt OK purchase orders。Bank statement 这些都是非常重要的东西，是你的 source document. Okay, so now we have to do some accounting work. Okay, so 我们每一个 cash, we learn accounts receivable, notes receivable, or notes payable, accounts payable, or some inventory, or building, or equipment. 那 all these things we call them account. 每一个东西就 so that's why I'm saying that you have to learn when you want to learning a language. The first thing you need lots of vocabularies. If you don't have the vocabulary, you don't know how to communicate with each other. Even you might have a very bad grammar, that's not really the key problem. Then you have the words in order to communicate. The words here is account. In accounting language is account. 这些会计科目就是我们的单字 ，so you have to accumulate more and more accounts, then you know accounting better and better. Okay, so account is a record of increase or decrease. So we have 5 major parts. 那这5大类，请特别注意，就是 assets, liability, equity, revenue, and expenses. You should know these 5 major elements, very important. Because you have to know, okay, all the account under the asset, the right position is debit. All the account under the liability, the right position is again, okay, here is the debit, and here the right balance position is credit. So besides that, one major thing, and one major thing. Okay. Then under the FP, we have revenue and expenses. Okay. So you should know the major 5 elements. So the revenue should be credit and the expense goes to debit. Okay, once you know the right spot, the position, the status, okay, then you are doing good for doing the daily transaction record. Okay, 所以呢 we have so many accounts. Together we call them general ledger. 现在知道这些字了吗？这些叫做 ledger account. Ledger account, even the asset ledger account, so many ledger account. Put all things total together, we call them general ledger. So general ledger just like a book, 好一本书一样，你每天的记录那就是你的 general ledger, okay, containing all the accounts used by the company. So then you might ask, how do I know? Who set up, who decide the general ledger size? Of course, director of accounting department. 好，会计主管他们就会设计整个的总分类账大概是什么样子。Okay, I think your TA provide you a list of the 所有的那个东西课程，等下我来 show you 那个总表在台湾 issued by Taiwan business I don't know which 财政部吗还是商业司 Okay, they will have a general ledger. Okay, so someday you should keep that file. It may someday you need to know for English name, for the Chinese version, for all those general ledgers. 好，所以我们有个总分类账，里面有所有东西。Okay, 所以我 finish this page. So every account should have its final balance. 也就是说 so this is the balance. 所以你现在知道我们 asking you, can you tell me till the end of today, today's October 26th, the balance of our notes receivable? 我如果问你说10月26日我们的应收票据多少钱 then you should find out the number over here, because this is notes receivable and this is the final number of the balance. Okay, 所以你应该知道人家在问你什么。So this is the account balance. Okay, account balance is the difference between the debits and credit for including the beginning balance. 所以像这个现金，它有个 debit credit, and the difference between two sides, and this is the balance. Okay, 好，这就是那个的部分。好，那 let's take a break. We're moving 10 minutes. We'll come back. Okay. Okay, we just mentioned the general ledger. So yes, you have any you got nothing, even notebook or paper? You need to do something during the class. We call that in-class notes.
Yeah.
So after the finish of this class, within 1 hour, you can snapshot or some later when you type, then you have to upload to the area of October 26th in-class notes. You have to put whatever you've been writing down during the 3 hours.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, let's move on. We have a ledger account. Then after you combine everything together, we call that general ledgers. Okay. So here, for example, for this summary from chapter 1, then we have a ledger account of cash. We have ledger account of accounts receivable, supplies, equipment, and for liability we have accounts payable, and for the equity we have capital, withdrawal, revenue, and expenses. So every account at the end, then you will see the balance. So when we combine all things together, we call that general ledger. Okay. So normally it's a review from chapter 1. You know the equation supposedly very well. So assets, the key words you have to need a right. You own something. If you don't own the right, then you are not supposed, that's not an item of your assets. So right in control is a very important thing to distinguish that whether you decide they are asset or not. Why you all squeeze together? We are still for the quarantine. You have to keep a distance with each other. 不可以挤在一起做。Okay, can move further later on. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So, and most of the reason, then once you decide they are your asset item, then they definitely will have an expected future benefit. So we have several accounts, but from here we only learn cash. We know notes receivable. Notes means anything about check or paper, like the commercial paper, like the check. We all call them notes. Okay, can be short term, can be long term. When you say short term or long term, we use 1 year to distinguish. Anything less than 1 year, we call that current or short term. Anything longer than 1 year, we classify them to, long term or non-current assets. Okay, we use 1 year to distinguish. 好，用1年来做切割。But something we haven't learned, and which is very important, we call that prepaid account. Later we have more explanation for that, and the concept for prepaid account is very important. And we also learn inventory. Inventory is 存货, and we also have learned supplies. Something will support you to run the business. Supply. You can be stationary supply, office supply. 像文具用品啊、办公用品啊，这些事情我们都叫 supplies. Okay, so they are assets. Okay, and we also learn notes payable. You have notes receivable. Of course, you have notes payable, and you have accounts payable. And also, small thing. Did you notice that? Why is it necessary? Is that mandatory? 一定要把 put notes receivable in front of accounts receivable. Yes. That's a small rule for that. Why you need to do that? Because the upper one, of course, the cash. Because cash, everyone likes cash. Cash can do all kinds of transactions and deals. Okay? Then later on, the closer to cash should be put has more priority. So when you have notes, when you have accounts receivable, then you will ask which one can become cash easier. Can transfer to cash easier. Normally, when you have a note receivable, you have check with you. Okay, even though it's the check showing that 60 days, longer 90 days, or shorter than 3 days, but no matter even 1 year note, you can take the note, go to the bank, then ask saying that I want to use to let my what's that word? 有点像质押 okay. Place my check and I will pay some fees in order to get the cash. Okay, we say that factor. 那个动作就叫做质押把支票换成现金. So actually, even the notes comparing to accounts receivable is easier to transfer to cash. That's why notes receivable or notes payable should be in front of accounts receivable or accounts payable. Okay? 因为票据跟应收款项比较起来，它们比较容易变成现金。Okay, 所以它的顺序会是在这边。Okay, let's move on. So we have a chart of accounts. Okay, depends on the company policy. Okay, actually it's an accounting policy. They decide how big the chart of accounts will be. Okay, 通常由公司政策、会计政策决定他们的会计科目要多长或多少。Okay, 好 ，let's see something. I think we don't need to spend time with cash and accounts receivable. And the difference between accounts receivable or notes receivable is accounts receivable is a credit. Okay, for example, I give my customer credit for certain days and let them to purchase things from me. Okay, I grant them some credit. 我们会给他一些信用. Then if that's so, they don't need to pay buy something with cash, okay, then that's accounts receivable. It's a credit account, okay? But what's the difference with notes receivable? Notes receivable definitely need to have a promise, written promise, has to come with hard copy or paper. 应收票据是要有一个票子 ，OK paper 的东西，应收账款是看不见的一个抽象的东西，好，它们两个是不一样的 ，OK？So notes receivable come up with a written promise, okay? Normally check, okay? So they are different. Okay, now something is very important because that's the most thing that student will get confused. We call that prepaid account. Prepaid, you pay in advance. 你先付了钱。For example, you come to Asian University. For the beginning, the school will bill you for the dormitory fee, 住宿费, right? So you pay the fee in order to get the right to live in the dormitory for the whole semester or whole academic year. You pay in advance, okay? So think about this way. Now you become the university side. You receive the money from the student. They pay for their right, okay? Then you have the obligation to allow the student to stay in the dormitory, unless they violate some rules. Otherwise, you cannot require them to move out. Okay? Clear? Both sides. Okay, both sides. So now back to your side. If your parents using their company to pay, become the company's title, pay the dormitory living fee for you. So you have to write. In that case, for your company's, your parents' company's book, the transaction, they will do the entry like this. They pay cash, pay out, for example, the whole semester is 50,000 NT dollars. 他们这是 debit, this is credit. So 他们 pay out cash.
他们说听不到你的声音。
哦
Teams
Okay, it's better now?
Teams 上面的不是
在那边听的。Okay, is it okay now?
还没回，没有，
Still not?
还没回。
A Teams 有开吗？重点是，我们看一下 Teams 有没有 microphone。Yeah.
刚进去的吗？
No, okay.
看到那个，
They asked it. They should ask earlier. It's okay?
我打开。
Okay. So you pay out cash. Okay, so that's why it's a credit. You decrease your assets, so you put cash on credit. Now you have the new, wait. Keep quiet. Now, you need to learn new vocabulary, a new account, which is prepaid expense. This expense can be a living expense, okay, or whatever expense. So, we should do this way. 50,000 here. Okay, so this is the entry we do for in the beginning of the semester. You pay out cash, then you own the right to allow you to stay for the whole semester in the dormitory. So, answer me. Prepaid item. They're supposed to be assets, liability or equity? Who can answer me? Here? So prepaid, do you think they should be assets, liability, or equity?
Equity.
Huh?
Equity.
Equity? Why you think they're equity? Why you think they're equity? Why you think it is equity? Other answers? Kevin, do you think prepaid expense is an account of the assets, liability, or equity? Liability? Just think the definition for the 5 major
Asset.
parts.
Asset.
Equity?
Asset.
Assets. Okay. Who agree that prepaid is an asset? Agree? Raise your hand. Yes. What about the others? You who? 你们都不 agree with that this is an asset. 那你们觉得是什么？ What do you think? Prepaid. 中文叫预付款项。中文叫预付，我已经预付，所以你们觉得是 asset 还是不是 asset？Yes or no? 再去 think about definition of asset. We go back. Liability? 为什么我这边的 screen 跟这边不一样？对啊，那我这里为什么不同？难道我这边变成这样子啊？那我这里的跟他这边不同调，不同步啊！你看我现在换这边不换。反正这边有卡死。
可是他还在。
可是我这边在页，可是他这边不会动啊。闪电在哪？
他那边对啊。
你想想看，定义资产的定义什么？刚才不是说 ，you have to write in control, and you will expect the future resource coming. 资产的定义是，你具有这个资产的所有权和控制权，然后会为你带来未来的 benefit。所以那什么叫做负债？负债是你对别人尽义务，然后会让你的钱流失。OK， 那你再回头这个 definition， 所以我说 the definition for the major 5 items is so important, each one. Okay, so when you were asked, what about the prepaid? Looks like you pay out something out of your pocket.
然后等下你们上课的时候用这样，这个左右，这样子，对不对？
对对。OK， 那我们现在看一下你的 assets definition. See here, we have the definition for assets. Okay, it's the right in control, have expected future benefit. 然后呢 ，liability claimed by creditor， 就是有你的就是去银行啊，或者你买的那个地方人的话 ，OK， 债权人会跟你索求请求东西 ，OK， 啊债权你，然后呢 ，all an obligation 你欠他的一个什么责任义务 ，OK，so from then some people is asking, they saying that they are equity. The equity is owner's claim on the company assets. Okay, it's related to owner, partners, or shareholder. Okay, should be very clear. Equity has to be related to, if it's a sole proprietorship, the owner. If the partnership is partners, if it's a corporation, then shareholder. Okay, 如果你是公司的业主、合伙人或者是股东的话，那他们跟这 related to the company， 这才是 equity。Besides that. Besides the 资本嘛，哈，资本 capital. Besides that, how much money the company earn, the operating result, also the right of the equity. 所以我们 clear 这3个 parts 后 then you come back to the question. prepaid. Prepaid looks like it's expense. When you say expense， 他们是费用啊，费用 is related to equity 啊。我觉得你这样子 logic 是对的，但是你忘记了一个更重要的 keyword。当他们配了这个钱，当你们配了这个 the whole semester， 请问 do you have the right to stay in your dormitory for the whole semester? I think the answer is yes. 你们有权利住在这边，对不对？那 the university side they owe the obligation， 他们有义务让你们住满整个学期，除非你有违反什么东西。所以 so any don't look at the words expense. Okay, you should see the key terminology prepaid 预付 any kind of prepaid. They should go to the asset. That's why they show up in the debit side. 因为他们是资产，所以它就在借方。Okay, so all the prepaid. So there are several examples. You might, subscribe the magazines for the 12 months, the whole year. 你会不会去订杂志，一年杂志 ？Okay. No matter it's hard copy or you can read the story from the internet, you subscribe something for the whole year. If you pay, but they will require you to pay the whole period of the fee, magazine fee. 他们会要求你先付一整年的钱。If that's so, that's also you prepay for the whole year's subscription, 一年的订购费。Then you have the right to receive monthly, 每个月会收到相关的东西 ，you prepay. And also another good example, your family buy insurance, 会买保险 ，it's very popular in Taiwan. Okay, then normally, no matter it's car insurance or life insurance, they have to pay in advance. So they are all the prepaid example. Okay, so everything prepaid, you receive the right. Okay, so they are assets. 现在可以理解吗 ？Get it? They are assets. 可以吗？好，所以 prepaid 不要 confuse with the expenses. Okay, you have to know you prepay something, then you got the right. 好 ，so we have something here is very any prepaid， 英中文叫预付款项啊 ，prepay future expenses but not current expenses. They are asset. So we have prepaid insurance, we have prepaid rent, we have prepaid service. Prepaid service. For example, they order the service for the coming 6 months to ask you to do the whatever the service, probably help them to clean the lawn, 就是那草地啊 or the garden job, okay, garden work, okay, 花园的一些工作 they prepay, you prepay them for 6 months, 6个月他要帮你来去清理的花园。If you prepay, then they become your right. As long as they are your rights, then you have to prepay. Then what about the means is prepaid account expire with the passage of time or through usage. Okay, 时间会 come day by day. So you actually this is you're getting to the second month of the whole semester. 第二个second month 第二个月了嘛，对不对？所以你会觉得 originally if you prepay the rent, we say that prepaid rent for the whole semester. So this is, for example, September 1st, you pay the 50,000 for the whole semester. After the passage of the September, 9月过去 now you are in October. Okay, so on the last day of September, 1 month has been used. For example, $50,000 actually is $10,000 for 1 month because there are 5 months for 1 semester. Okay, 1 month out. Then how much left you have to write? 1个月过去了，你觉得你还会有多少的住的权利？几个月 ？You have 5 months right to stay in the dormitory, and then 1 month passed, so you only keep 4 months left. How do you know? How do you show from the balance you still have 4 months to stay? You have to remove 1 month's rent, the right, from the book, which is $10,000. How do you know you can remove? You put the credit on from your debit. So we just said you have to post into each individual ledger account. So from here, easily to tell, you have an account, ledger account. The name is prepaid rent. So after you have the daily transaction record, you posting to individual account. So the first one, you have the right on your debit side because they are assets. So you have $50,000. So now it's the end of the month. You are running out 1 month's right. So put here, credit. So after the difference, the balance, now you know you still have 4 months right from your balance. Can see that. But what about here? What about here? You have credit, then you definitely need to have a debit. Credit, debit. Then what about here? This is something very important. Once you have experienced your right, then they becomes your what? Expense. So now the debit will be rent expense $10,000. So when you are making your financial statement for the income statement, you incurred $10,000 rent expense for September. 这个部分非常非常的重要观念。Okay? We are saying prepaid is your right, but your right will be decreased with the passage of the time. 时间过去，它的 right 越变越少。当它变少的时候，那个就变成了它的费用。费用 you incur 费用 in order to help you to do something. 像我们 doing business, you have to spend the salary expense, you have to spend the rent expense, you have to spend the utility expense. 水电费啊、租金啊、薪资，这些都是 expenses. In order to what? To have some revenue. Then for student why you need to spend expenses? 因为 you're going to create value of your life. 你的在大学里所学的价值就是你的 revenue, 就是你的 revenue. Okay, even though they are invisible, but they will come true later after 4 years. Okay? 所以这个很重要，用掉的东西用到哪里去了？他们一定要有一个 debit credit 关系，它不可能只有一个存在的东西。那你知道，当你用掉，就是它 incur 发生的费用。OK， so 这个就说这边很重要。那会有说 all through usage what? Okay, there's another example. Even though they don't call the prepaid, but they are similar. For example, you purchase the stationery store, 文具店 say that you buy more, then I give you more discount. 常常是不是有这种事情？你去买文具用品，买越多，他给你 more discount. Okay, so your company decides to purchase 3万块的文具用品 for in advance. 所以呢，今天你买了一批 supply 文具用品 with cash total is $30,000. So you put in your office somewhere 啊，你把这样子文具用品。A bunch of 30,000文具用品还不少东西，哇，一大堆 pens 啊，或者 rulers 啊，或 whatever. We have a bunch of things. Total value is $30,000. So you put in your major office. Then whoever needs pen or whatever, they'll come to me to take it away. 所以你的公司里有 so many employees from different departments, they will, request for any kind of supplies. 所以你不可能 there's no way you have to count it whenever people come to you to ask for some stationery supplies, 文具用品. So what you do, for example, is also September 1st. So at the end, you need to have a physical count. 到9月30，你要去把这3万块文具用品 physical count 就盘点一下，我们叫 physical count 盘点，发现什么 ？OK， 还剩下多少笔多少什么东西 ？The total value, for example, is $18,000. 剩下的价值在盘点只剩下18000，那代表什么意思？代表什么？你用掉了12000，对不对？3万 originally the total value is $30,000. At the end of the period, you did a physical count, 存破盘点, and the total value become $18,000, which means you have the whole employee of the company have used the value of 12,000 supplies. 这样 OK 吗？ So, 你的 posting for this individual account becomes like this. Originally, supply posting, you have $30,000. Now, at the end, the total value become $18,000, which means the company has used $12,000. Okay, so this is the example for even though they are not called prepaid, okay, but you still buy something with the whole bunch of money. So you have to decrease the credit, you put it here. Then what about here? What about here? Here, you have the credit here, 12. Okay? So, definitely, you use out something, then it becomes an expense, $12,000. Okay? So this is another example for this page. Okay? The first one, with the passage of time, 时间过去, then you use this example. You pay the 5 months rent for the whole semester. With the months passed, they reduce the total right and go to the expense incurred for September. Okay? Then another example for the through use. You buy the whole bunch of stationery supplies for this total value. At the end, you are doing the physical count. 期末你做盘点的时候 the total value has $18,000 left. So which means you have to reduce $12,000. So you put a debit to credit. Then they become supplies. Don't forget the words, expense. If you don't put expense, they are the same. But if you put expense, they are different. Okay? 那这叫什么？文具用品费用 different. 文具用品费用 Okay? So you incurred. Let the account. For example, we have the definition here for the future. Have expected future benefit. Okay? 所以 for this one, future benefit, they can stay in the dormitory. The future benefit here, people can use the stationery the supply in order to to do administrative work. Okay, 做行政事务。Okay, so after they are running the asset, they become the expense. Okay, 所以我们还会有 more example, so don't worry if you still get confused. Okay, so when the financial statement are prepaid account are adjusted. So this is adjustment, and this is adjustment too. Adjustment. In order, if you don't have the adjustment, then your account cannot be updated. If you made an account after you finish the adjustment, then your prepaid account can be updated. 这样懂吗？如果你不做一些调整，他们就不能够目前的变成就更新成目前的权利4万块。OK， 啊，如果你没有做这个调整 then the balance here cannot be updated to the current value， 好，不能被调整的目前的价值。所以呢 ，so that all expired or used prepaid account are recorded as regular expense， 这些就是 regular expense 平常的费用 regular expense，OK，and all unexpired or unused prepaid account they still keep their status of asset. They still are the asset status of asset. 他们还是资产方式。Okay, so far I think you know the concept, but you are still confused about the way to do this way. 你会觉得说，哎，听起来好像懂，但是呢，用这个会计语言这样表达，你又有点不懂。OK， 怎么会变成这样子的东西了呢 ？OK，don't worry, we'll keep on moving. OK， 好，我们就是剩下的 the rest of the I think is OK. Supplies, equipment, buildings, land. OK, all the sub assets, all the assets, except land can be running out and the value can be decreased. 所有的资产它都会 through the time, through the usage, the value will be decreased. 但是 the only exception is the land. Okay? 所以 supplies can through the usage 它 become less and less, then finally become zero. 那 equipment 呢，这个 the computer or the the all the furnished 的所有东西呢 furniture 它们都会 getting old. Okay, so now how do you know they are old? Because you need to do another adjustment for depreciation. 我们会用折旧方式来做调整。So made the supplies, made the equipment, made the building, the value become less and less. But the only exception is the land. Land will not be depreciated. land 土地不会折旧，土地 can be appraised. They, year by year or time by time, 它们的价值只会 rise ，rise up， 它们的 value for land, OK， 所以 land is the only item will not be depreciated， 不会被折旧的东西，所以请记住 land， among the asset， 在它所有的资产里面 ，land 是不折旧的，只会加值 add value。Okay, here are the examples, so we can skip that. Okay, I think it's about time to do our first session for the class quiz. So everyone, please log in your Trump class to Kevin, could you help Lisa? Maybe I'm worried she did. Okay, 2-1 quiz here. Okay, 可以看到了吗？请问。Can you see the questions?
Yep.
Okay, good. 自己做自己的哦，这是 open book question. So if you are not sure about the answer, you can check with your PPT or your textbook, but you don't do the discussion. Okay. 看得好，声音有没有？Okay, let's do the discussion for the quiz you just had. Okay, the first step in the processing of the transaction is to analyze the transaction and source document. I think the answer is true. Okay, we should keep quiet because we're doing the video now. The first question, okay, the answer is true. The second one, source document provides evidence of business transaction and are the basis for accounting entries. And I think the answer should be true too. Okay. You have to learn the word entry, E-N-T-R-Y, and the plural entries. 这是就是我们做 debit credit 那个就叫做 entry 分录 ，OK， 记住这个字。Number 3, items such as sales tickets, bank statement, checks, and purchase order are all source document. The answer is true too. Number 4, we store. Be careful. Remember in chapter 1, we have expenses. The right position for expenses are the debit. But withdraw is something you deduct money with the capital. Okay, so they are also the debit, but it's related to capital. But it not withdraw is not related to the performing operating performance. So they are not the business expense. So withdrawal by the owner are a business expense is false, not right. Number 5, the chart of account is a list of all accounts used by a company and includes an identification number assigned to each account. I think that's right because we have a whole list of accounts. Okay, that's just that the overall we call that general ledger. This is right too. Last one. In a double entry accounting system, what's double entry account system? It's debit credit, and we call it double entry accounting system. The total amount debited must always equal the total amount credited, not necessary. Okay? Actually, this one, the total amount debit and total amount credit, they are not equal. Okay, this is called double entry. If you didn't make it right, it's acceptable because we didn't mention double entry. Okay, but actually the answer for this one is wrong. Okay. Okay, then moving on, we finished the assets. Now we're moving to liabilities. Liability, you owe somebody's money. Why you are so late? What's your name? Huh? 我觉得你 you are always late. I don't like the attitude. Okay.
黄建伟 always late.
我觉得你常常好像 okay. Even we have very limited student here, I can actually be familiar with each one's face. Okay, 所以请 try to be on time. Okay, try to be on time. So liability are claims. Help the words against 针对 assets. Claim to asset, claim against asset, both are right. Okay, by whom? By creditor. someone owes the right to claim money to you against you. OK， 他们是 creditor，then you become debtor。这个字我们上次讲过。Another side is debtor. So someone owe money to someone else, then you are debtor. Then you do pronounce but, okay, debtor, debtor. 债务人，那叫债权人，这个叫做债务人 ，OK, debtor. Okay. All right. So liability are claims against asset, which means they have obligation to transfer asset to provide product or service, whatever. Okay. So several example we have known pretty well: accounts payable, notes payable. But now we move to something accrued liability. This is something important. Okay. Accrued. Accrued 这个字 means it incurred, it happens, but you don't pay yet. You don't use it with any cash. Accrued. 我们的 accounting 好 is not cash basis. 过去你没有学过 accounting， 你的脑子里面装的 you have everything with you just about you are concerned about the cash. But actually, in accounting, they see the facts, they see the reality. Okay. For example, you have utility bill, 对不对？ And every month 你不可能 prepay utility, you cannot be prepaid, unless the rent is covering the old utility. 什么是 utility? Utility 的中文是水电，所以它包括了你的 water bill， 它包括了 the electricity。所以 someday you go to any country in the world, they will ask, does that cover the rent, cover utility? 那只有水电费，没有 gas, not gas, no not internet. OK， 水电 utility 就水和电。OK， 所以 if you have to pay utility, you spend first. Then you weigh the bill. When you receive the bill, then you have the expire date to pay off the bill. So, 当你 receive the bill, you haven't paid yet, but they incurred already. So you could have utility payable 应付水电费. Once you receive the bill, you know how much you have to incur, then you know how much you have to pay from them. At the end of October, something like that. We call it accrued payable. Anything accrued liability 就是 payable. 那还有一些 example payable 的 accrued liability. For example, you have several employees working for you, then you pay probably every 2 weeks the end of Friday. Then as long as they work, they incur the salary. But they work for you, but they have to be paid until the end of the 2 weeks. So in that case, you have again salary payable. 那这些都是类似的 example. Incurred, not yet paid. 所以的 accrued liability 应付款项 ，OK， 应付款项。OK, something similar words with the prepaid expenses. 我们上堂课 we said here, prepaid rent, you pay in advance, so you are having the right to do whatever, okay? But from the other side, now you move your mind to the university side. We receive the living dormitory fee from the student. They pay in advance, which means we receive the money in advance, okay? So here you call them prepaid. But another side, we have a new vocabulary of account saying that's unearned revenue. Unearned revenue. So prepaid, the other side of the party is unearned. Okay, unearned. So same thing. September 1st, at the university, okay, they received $50,000 cash. There should be no doubt about this part. You receive cash. Cash is the asset account, so they show on the debit side. You receive. But at the same time, I owe the obligation to the students, whoever they paid. I owe the obligation. They can have the right to stay in the dormitory. So I owe the obligation. As long as you owe the obligation, then that's your liability. So we create a new account saying that unearned rent. $50,000 for here. Unearned 预收收益 unearned 如果按照 word transfer 的话，好像是还没赚到的 unearned， 但是我们把它叫做预收，刚才叫预付，但这边的中文叫预收 ，OK？ So this can be any kind of revenue. For example, here unearned revenue, a rent. Then 或者说你刚刚讲的那个杂志的话，那 unearned revenue 收入 ，OK？ 那或者是那个 unearned insurance revenue 也可以 ，OK？ 所以这叫 unearned。那一样是 if you do the same thing, so the end of September you need to have adjustment too, OK? Since you allow them to stay for the whole month, so after you finish your service, after you fulfill your obligation, these things turn to what? Revenue. Okay. Can someone tell me revenue should put on in the debit or revenue go to the credit? Really? Revenue 应该是 debit 还是 credit? Good. Revenue 是 credit. 为什么它是 credit? Why? Based on the accounting equation, 它会为什么它会是 revenue 是 credit？ 你要不能用死背，你要觉得它是 acceptable, it makes sense. Why? 雨婷，高雨婷，为什么 revenue 是 credit？
他才是雨婷。
哦，他才是哪？这个是雨婷。
Yep.
哦，那你是什么？
赠与。
哦，那雨婷好了。
哦。
你同意吗 ？Do you agree? Do you agree revenue is credit?
Yes.
Why?
Let me think about it.
啊，知怡来想想看 ，Why revenue is credit? Because whenever you have revenue, you increase what? Equity, right? 所以要这样记。哎 ，Hello。你们不要死背，要永远，因为 we have more and more vocabulary, we have more and more accounts, okay, happening, in the following chapters. If you don't, can recognize the definition, then every time you just have to memorize, then too much for your brain, okay? So actually, anything happen for the revenue will increase your equity. So equity is on the equation's right side. So they are credit. They are credit. So that's why whenever you have expense, you will decrease your equity. So equity should go to debit. Okay? So always follow the formula, then you won't lose. You won't get lost. Okay? So that's why these unearned revenue originally debit, credit, because they are the obligation here. So when they want to decrease their obligation because they allow students to stay for 1 month. So how do you make it decrease? You get it from credit to debit. So you have unearned rent, and that obligation being fulfilled become a revenue. So you have rent, revenue here. So revenue goes to credit. So 10,000 for 1 month. So this is the adjustment at end of September. So after you've done this, whoever tell me what's the balance for the unearned rent? What's the balance for the unearned rent? Ping Yu, what's the balance for the unearned rent? 40,000, right? Then how much happened for the September for the university? How much revenue they have earned? How much revenue they have earned?那个什么小竹吗？宣竹哦，宣竹。How much revenue they have earned for the university? How much revenue they earn? $10,000 here. $10,000 rent revenue earned during September. Okay? So 你可以知道说 earned revenue refer to a liability. When it is good, 这很好 settle the future 就是已经解决了 settle。我们通常讲 settle down， 我已经就是到个 new place I have already settled down， 已经安定下来都没问题。That's not the definition. Okay, here settle 就是已经 solve the problem. Okay, 或者 agree with each other. Okay, that is settle in the future when company delivers either products or services. Okay, so customer they can pay in advance. For them, it's called prepaid. Whoever is paid, you owe the obligation, you call it unearned. Happen when you provide service, when you deliver the products, then the unearned becomes revenue. 好，收益要等你完成你的义务或者商品或者服务之后才会这个。那这个我们就叫 revenue recognition principle。所以我们说什么叫做 revenue recognition？Revenue recognition 的意思就是你要认列这个收入，但是 when you recognize the revenue means you have already provided whatever you should do, OK？ 所以这就是 unearned 的意思啊 ，unearned 的意思。好，所以我们 have several examples here, so I will skip. OK, the last item of equity accounts, OK, two parts. One is related to capital change, 资本的变化. If you invest money to the company, you increase your capital, then it's part of the equity. When you take money by owners or partners, 只有 owner 和 partner 就业主、独自业主和合伙人，他们 can withdraw money. Okay, again, withdraw is a debit account, but they are not expenses. Withdraw 只是会 reduce your capital balance. 当你有 withdraw 的时候，你的资本额的余额就会变少。OK， 那 withdraw 是在借放借放。That's the change of the capital. You invest money, you increase the capital. You withdraw money, then you decrease the balance of the capital. And another part related to equity is the net income. How do you know the result of the balance of the net income? Because you might increase the revenue, or if you are the merchandise business, 如果你是买卖业 or manufacturing industry 制造业 when you sell something, we call that sales. Either sales or sales revenue. Most of the time we prefer to use sales. 当你看到 sales 这个字就是收入，是来自买卖业或者制造业。But if you are providing the service, normally we call revenue. 好，我们就会用收入，也是一样，这收入这个字。So you create revenue, you incurred related expenses. Why I say related? OK， 你有的收入就有相关的费用发生。OK，the utility, the rent, OK, and the salary or the depreciation of the furniture， 折旧这些都是 related to the business, so they are expenses. And the net， 好，这两个相扣之后呢，就是你的 net income. OK，on this book, the book did not mention a very important word. Later on, you will see that retained earning. 好 ，this word retained earning 是一个很好的字，好，叫做保留盈余。好，保留盈余。Normally we prefer to use RE。所以你看到人家讲 RE 就是 retained earning。The result actually retained earning net income is retained earning. Retained earning is net income. When you say net income, most of the time it's about the sole proprietorship or partnership. 大部分都是独资或者是合伙人喜欢用 net income 本期损益。但是 for the company corporation， 他们 prefer use retained earning 啊，保留盈余。Why retained? I mentioned several times. We have 4 statements for financial statement. 我们在财务报表有4个报表。OK, net income or changes of equity or the statement of cash flow. 不管你是损益表、股东权益变动表或者现金流量表。These 3 statements is specific for a specific period， 只有一个期间。But balance sheet 资产负债表 or somebody call for IFRS 国际会计准则 called statement of financial position is accumulated year by year. So that's why if you have been established a company for 20 years, so your retained earning is the accumulation number for the past 20 years. 如果你公司已经经营20年，你的保留盈余就是20年的经营成果，每年 add up. Okay, then if it's just 1 year, then the retained earning is only for 1 year. So that's why we call that retained earning. Retained earning. When you see net income for short period， 好，本期属于本期嘛，就是 current 的意思。So retained earning is much formal word, the item or the account, okay, for the accumulated net income, okay. 好，所以就是2个 parts 你来知道。So we also know the structure for this, and this is important. And then again, please remember if you still are behind on about accounting, you have to memorize this page, okay. Anything positive on the left side, you put on debit. Anything, the thing right is debit. OK， 所以 any decrease 就 go to the other side. OK， 所以这是很好记的。这个 OK， 我们又进入了第2个 quiz， 很快哈。第2章我们讲chapter 2 is much faster than chapter 1 because we have already done lots of things on chapter 1. OK, let's go to do 2-2 again. 老师，你是发生什么事？为什么这么 recorded as debit？ 一说你的liabilities, the original position is credit. So whenever you increase, supposedly should be on credit. OK， 所以这题是错的。OK， 第2题 ，an owner's capital account normally has a debit balance. No capital is one of the item of the equity， 所以它是 credit。OK， 所以大家的那个 debit credit 观念要很快，就必须要 set up 非常的好。OK， 第3题 ，if insurance coverage for the next 3 years is paid in advance, for the amount of payment is debit to an asset account called prepaid. 任何的 prepaid 都是 asset， 所以是 debit prepaid insurance。所以这题 answer is right, true. Number 4, unearned revenue are liability. 对 correct, true. The last one, an account balance is the difference between the debits and credit for the account including any beginning balance. 这是对的，好，对的。所以呢，这题就是 true。 好，所以呢，这个时候我们就剩下的下个礼拜呢，我看时间有一些 turn，OK，、那我们下礼拜再开始，我们今天就上到这边，希望能 good luck for the afternoon chapter 1 exam，OK，、我的那个 once again， 我的研究是在我的 M649。所以我非常 welcome everyone to have any discussion with me. M649, the sixth floor of the project management. Whenever you have questions, come to my office room. It's very welcome. Monday through Thursday, okay, anytime, unless I have class or some meeting. 好了，我们今天 the end of class for today.